because they're cookie cutters. But if you have service, then you have to have another completely different design on the operating systems. The service system is done by people, pick up by a person, delivered by a person, and a lot of time at that time the address is written by hand. Sometimes a 13 come out to be looking like 15, and then you deliver the 15, and then 2 hours later some lady call up and say, this is not our package, right?
Right.
Now, if you say zero tolerance, in fact, I am sure that at those times we don't have barcode scanners, and
Right.
you will find a whole lot by the end of 1 month,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Because it's not avoidable. So the only thing is to make it and say, okay, this is a family, it's safe, right? Just don't repeat the same mistake. Making it once is okay. And a lot of times, people don't want to make mistakes. They make mistake because the guy from the other end, right, 15 looks like a 13, or 13 looks like a 15. Or all of a sudden, Melbourne is in Australia, then next day, Melbourne is in Alabama. Well, there are 12 Londons around the world. So with that kind of situation, the best way you can do, is to have a culture that is self-learning and self-correcting. And it's like if you have a restaurant, if the wrong dish is cooked, wrong dish is served, and you fire the cook and you fire the waiter, you end up with nobody serving you within a month. Yeah. So it has to be a. Now we don't sort things by hand. We sort it by machine. So there's a lot less mistakes. But before then, what we did was try to help the sorting by color coding. And so if you have all yellow bags and then one red bag in the pile, there's an odd man in there.
Right.
So we give them all the aids of preventing mistakes, but there's still mistakes. And as long as we cover it fast enough, and also as long as we have a system that repeat that the other 5 guys don't make the same mistake as the first guy, right? The first guy make one mistake. Well, statistically, it's 5 times 4.
Yes.
Right? So, but if 5 times 1, then it's 5 mistakes.
Right.
5 times 4 is 20 mistakes.
Right.
No.
Now, in accomplishing this, does the company have a policy, or did the company have a policy of using these mistakes or these errors of judgment, shall we say, as examples that would be shared more broadly among not just the 6 guys at lunch, but more broadly around the company?
Right.
Companies nowadays talk a lot about the value of stories. And oftentimes those stories are good stories, which is good. But you're suggesting that bad stories are important too, because that's the way we can learn from them.
In fact, when we were growing up, the company was growing up, there are a lot of talk about best demonstrated practice, right? Usually those are far and few in between. Mistakes are dozens. Yeah. Marketing, it's an offensive game. Operating, refining operating system is an offensive game, but delivering things is like playing goalie. Right? If you can stop mistakes happening, it's like intercepting a goal pass. Yeah. So, for a company who handles millions of transactions each day, actually, it's more important that you stop mistakes from happening. It's difficult sometimes to explain it to customers You know, they say, oh, you make mistake with my... But actually, we stop probably 10 mistakes and make one of them. Or we stop 20 mistakes by sharing horror stories. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting too in the service business, and this is very interesting what you've been saying, in the service business, the mistakes almost by definition are going to be people mistakes. Whereas if you have a big manufacturing facility, yes, there are people mistakes, but there are also engineering mistakes,
Right.
which can be corrected and addressed and so on. But it's the constant repetition of these people mistakes that, of course, will destroy a business.
We do have our engineering type of mistakes. That would be inappropriate design in an operating system. And we have those.
Sure.
But when they pop up enough, 3 times, we say, hey, is that an individual mistake or a system mistake? Right? If you don't talk about it, it may last for 2 months before you notice the system. But if it pops up, people talk about it, wow, within 3 days, you change that.
Now tell me how, when you say that people talk about it,
Yeah.
is that at all levels of the company, or there are specific areas that where people are going to be talking about it? In other words, to get that chatter, if you will,
Right.
where does it happen?
Well, it depends on the level.
Okay.
So 3 guys share 1 beat, right? That would definitely be shared by that group and the supervisor, because some of them is local, within 1 building. You know, such and such company moved from that block to that block, or be careful of what you pick up from this guy, because he's putting ball pens and sending it to Jakarta, right? He only sent 3, but it stopped the whole Jakarta shipment at the customs, because customs caught 3 pens.
Right.
Now those would be within the beat,
I see.
right? Then you have within the airport. Then they share airport, and then within the region they share region. One thing about us is operation is borderless. That means we don't have borders on operation information, because it affects everybody in the whole network. Because we send couriers early, we actually have flying people from Hong Kong to Singapore, Hong Kong to Guam, and then Guam to San Francisco, Guam to... We do have a network of word to mouth, or word of mouth talking about crooks and weird things that happen in the network. Yeah.
And that's part of that tribal culture. The word
Yeah,
gets
right.
around.
Yeah, the word gets around.
and people
because
share it.
you help other people by telling them the horror stories. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. In many companies, sadly, things go wrong. Ethical decisions are made that, in some cases, have caused some major companies to collapse.
Right.
So, what do you think it is that has caused things to go wrong? And let's start first with DHL. When things go wrong, they can go badly wrong. What do you think sort of causes that? Let's start with DHL and then think more about business generally on a global basis. Not everything is perfect all the time.
Right. But I would say during my tenure with DHL, most of the things that go wrong are probably operational and sometimes financial. Financial is more financial planning, not enough cash to finance the debtors, because airline only give us 15 days. We